Good morning. My special guest this morning is Dr. Chris Goodrich. And before I introduce Chris, I want to tell a little story about why I'm having Chris on the show this morning. It's about, I was 27 years old, so we're talking many decades ago. I was driving down the freeways of LA and I started to feel this little twinge in my lower back on the right side, which I didn't think much of. But it started getting worse and worse and worse. And to cut to the chase, that pain in my back lasted over 15 years. So it started me on my own Siddhartha journey about how can I heal this pain? What's going on? What's the answer here? So I started to go and see people that had medical advice for me and all types of other advice as to what I could do. So I started out with a chiropractor because as a 16-year-old, my mom took me to a chiropractor a few times, and it seemed to work magic. In fact, I was on my way to Palmer College of Chiropractor. I believed in it so much I wanted to be a chiropractor. Yeah, I know. But life had other things in mind for me. So I went to a chiropractor. It didn't really seem to work out too well. And then I just started a whole string of healers. My friends were recommending this and that. So by that time, I had moved to Sedona, Arizona, which if you know a little bit about Sedona, every healer in the world lives out there. So we started with Rolfing. And of course, from the Rolfer's viewpoint, I had a structural problem. So we started on my structure and walking better and everything. And then I had a friend and that didn't do any good. It didn't do any, I wasn't any better at all. And then I had a friend that taught yoga for the back. So I thought, oh, that's great. Sign me up for that. And after every class, I felt worse. That's not working for me. And then I went to see another chiropractor because he had an interesting twist on the story. He said, I adjust disc. I went to this special workshop. I learned how to adjust disc. No other chiropractor's doing it. That's your answer right there. So I did that for a while and it didn't work out. And then I went to another chiropractor. I went to a medical doctor and he checked me out and he had me start to do some visualization, sending my pain off into the red rocks of Sedona. So, all right, that worked about for 5 minutes. Medical doctor. I went to an osteopath because I had read that osteopaths are like supercharged chiropractors. So I thought, well, that's got to do it. So all I remember is taking a look at that bill at the end of my visit and going, "Are you kidding? I don't feel any better, and you want me to pay what?" So. And then one more chiropractor, and I remember driving home from this chiropractor, pulling over, and I started to cry. I wasn't even 40 years old yet, and I felt like, that this is going to be the rest of my life. The pain beyond anything I could describe. One day I was house sitting for a friend. I was going through his books on the shelf, and this book kind of, a Sedona thing, right? Or God thing, I don't know. But it just kind of fell out. It stuck out, and it fell on the floor. Oh my God. So I looked at it and it said, Mind Over Back. It was by Dr. John Sarno. Well, okay, that's interesting. So I went over to the dining room table and I started reading this book. And it's like, wait a minute. I was on every page of this book. He described me to a T. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but what I learned from that book and from Dr. John Sarno is that I didn't have a structural problem. There was nothing physical wrong with me. And that just blew my head went off. It just flew off. You got to be kidding. In fact, I didn't believe it. So I read that book, I think a total of 3 times. And again, I saw myself on every page. And what Dr. Sarno described was not a structural or a physical problem, but a personality problem, a personality disorder. And it had to do with internal rage, repressed rage, personalities that are do-goodist and perfectionist. And that's it. That was me to a T. So needless to say, Dr. Sarno said a lot of people will get better just by reading the material and starting to incorporate it in their belief system to build confidence around that idea, and they would get better. Some people might need some psychological assistance with that, a small percentage of people. Fortunately, I was one of those that did get better. I remember it was about 6 weeks. I was on a big hike, something that would normally just terrorize my back. And I didn't even think about it till after the hike. It dawned on me, wow, I'm not in pain. What's going on here? I was shocked for the first time. And it was a rigorous hike. That normally would have taken me out. So that was it. And I never looked back. And I was better. Every time I get even a little twinge, I said, well, that's my mind. Those are those personality traits peaking up. So fast forward years later, many years later, I had a relapse, about a year ago, Dr. Chris, right?
Yep.
About a year ago, and it just took me out. So I wanted to find a doctor that was familiar with Dr. Sarno, which is a rare find anywhere in the world. And I was really fortunate to find Chris, the only one in Portland, Oregon, my home. So I went to go see Chris to get that confirmation that, yes, it was the same thing. It was just life issues, a lot of things overwhelming me. And I call it the emotional timeline, to look at those things that were bothering in my life. And I had a stack of them. This was right at the beginning of COVID. My entire work situation changed. My relationship with my kids changed. Everything was just upside down. It made total sense to me. So I went to see Chris. I did get that confirmation with him. So here's why Chris is on the show today. I am so inspired by you, Chris, because you are one of those doctors that, again, a very rare find, that has dedicated themselves to going deeper into the issues of what's going on with people. And my belief is that it's all emotional. And this is just based on my experience. It's coming from the emotions. I learned the difference between acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain, for example, if you fall out of a tree and break the largest bone in your body, which is your femur, you set it in a cast, you're going to be better in 8 to 10 weeks. Done deal, you're back on the road. But if something is lingering, in my case, 15 years, I believe it's gone into the emotional realm. It's gone into the realm of the emotions. And there's something going on that's perpetuating that pain in our personalities. So that's why I have Dr. Chris on today, because, again, he's doing this work. He's helping a lot of people become more aware of what's really going on with them as a doctor. So I want to talk about that, because you're in an industry that's it's not too popular to have those beliefs.
Not at all.
Dr. Sarno, who just passed away a couple years ago, I think he was either 93 or 94, said that in his 50 years at the Ruskin's Medical Institute where he worked, he did not get one referral from any of the doctors that he worked with. And yet he was curing millions of people around the world through his books. Howard Stern, right? Larry David. A lot of celebrities went to him and got better. It's just amazing. So I'm honored to have you, Chris, here. So I just wanted to, I guess we're ready to go. Chris has his degree from the University of Virginia Medical School.
Hey, you can read it back there.
Yeah, he did his residency at Sinai Hospital in Baltimore. And now, Chris, is this your first practice here in Portland, or did you have a practice somewhere before?
I guess this would be my first self-practice, solo practice. I do the solo. Kind of jumped into this right after residency.
Right.
Since I kind of prefer doing various things as opposed to big box medicine, so to say. Allows you the freedom to kind of do interesting stuff.
You're doing it. So what inspired you as a young man? And you're a young man, very young man still in my book. So, but what inspired you early on to think about medical school, to want to become a doctor?
So I majored in biomedical engineering at Penn State. So from there, most of the other people in my graduating class were getting jobs doing basically like supply chain. Like, this is the box that you put a shot into. Like, you designed the box. It's like, that didn't really sound that interesting to me.
Right.
To do that type of stuff. And so medical school seemed a interesting path. I went into it initially looking at kind of developmental disabilities. I have a brother with autism, and probably had the naive belief that I would fix that somehow via becoming a doctor. So did that, and through medical school kind of figured that out, that you can't really fix a lot of things. And this is actually a problem that you could talk about. It fits right into what we're talking about, but sort of the whole medical realm in our country, that there are the acute things that we can fix really easily, and then there's the chronic stuff that no one wants to do with because it's boring and it's not interesting and it's not exciting and doesn't have a one-shot cure. So that's kind of where it led to me going into. So I am a physiatrist or a physical medicine and rehab doc. So that's what Dr. Sarno was as well. I remember looking up the NYU residency program, thinking, oh, I could maybe go there where he is, but I think he was like 95 by then, so he wasn't really active at that point.
Yeah.
But so physiatry or physical medicine and rehab is ends up kind of being work with various disabilities, whether it's orthopedic stuff, neurological stuff, spinal cord injury, brain injury. It's a hodgepodge of stuff, and a lot of people in it do the chronic pain management stuff. But most people in my specialty do procedures, injections, and all these other things, which you actually look at the research, doesn't really work. And kind of this is sort of the issue that I fell into, maybe because I just read things a little bit more carefully or didn't go
read the fine print. Yeah.
It is sort of that lemming thing, like people just follow along and don't really think much about it. And when you do think about it and you step back and like, why is this? Why are we doing this? Like, this doesn't make sense. It's not working. Why are you doing this? It's like, well, they pay you, so just do it. So I didn't like that. So that's sort of how I ended up kind of doing my own thing, finishing up with residency. As we've talked about, this kind of pain practice isn't my only thing because you don't exactly get good referrals from surgeons and other types that act like everything's purely structural. So I think I threw a lot of stuff out there. So I'm sure there's points you'd like to delve into.
I'm just, my mind is like going crazy because I'm going back to the Sarno. But maybe you could touch on a little bit. Sarno talks about, and when I talk to people, a lot of times when they're in defense of their pain, they go right to that MRI because it's like the MRI is the last word in your problem. And I'd like, maybe you could comment on that. Dr. Sarno says that's not the truth at all. In fact, he rarely looked at those charts in those findings.
MRIs are dangerous because I think, and I'd have to look up the stats, but I use it in a presentation I've done. It's once you hit age 30, 50% of people have back pathology on imaging. Yeah, at least on X-ray, and MRI is so good at seeing stuff that makes it way even more likely. They're starting to come around a little bit now. A slipped disc can get better. Like suddenly that's starting to come out, and who knows exactly when that's going to catch on. But people attach to this imaging as if it is everything. Doesn't work that way. And that's what you actually see in practice as well. If you actually look around, because to have someone come in, so I'm trained in doing those injections and all the different procedures and stuff. And it's like, doc, I've got this thing going on. It's on the left side of my back and it's going down the front of my leg. Oh, okay. That means that it is the left L4 nerve root is affected. Let's do your MRI. He's like, wait, it's your right L5 that looks bad and your L4 is fine. But your pain is on that side and your right side's fine. So what's going on?
It is. Yep.
Imaging doesn't necessarily correlate. One of my mentors, David Hanscom, was a spine surgeon. He would basically say that the only people he would ever do surgery on was someone where your complaints, your physical exam, and your imaging match up perfectly. And that's so rare. That's like, I think he said that was 10% of the people that came in, which is important to acknowledge here, because a lot of my job is actually making sure that someone doesn't have the bad stuff that is like legitimately completely structural and needs to be fixed, which even that is a little bit of a fine line. Doesn't necessarily, it's not a black and white thing. And this is sort of the entire picture here of pain. It's really interesting if you acknowledge the big picture of it, which it's coming around. It's getting there.
It's coming around again. That's why I applaud your work. I think it's great that you're doing this again. You have your own office. You're not working in a clinic. It's just like, what did you tell me when I came to visit you? A lot of people don't come back, or they come back very rarely.
I have a very good, I think I have a pretty solid success rate, mainly because people self-select to come in, but either you come in for a visit, you kind of I line you up, send you out. And I mean, you're doing all the work. You can say so yourself. I didn't do a whole lot for you other than say, like, you're good. Bless you.
Get the blessing, right. Well, that's why I went to see you, just to kind of get the blessing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, and this is the hard part for a lot of people is like, you have to do the work. A lot of our culture is based off of the doctor's going to fix me. It's like, I got that.
Exactly.
It's learning, it's growing. But I mean, the interesting piece of this is you could call pain a chance to grow as a person. If you can truly acknowledge it that way, you could. Sometimes I call pain, your body is telling you that you need to grow or that you need to
change.
And it's been actually telling you for a while, but now it's kind of annoyed you didn't listen. Yep. So it's a chance to grow. It's a chance to work and to become a better person, a better human. That's what's really interesting about it. And when you see people that have done the work and grown, it's really cool to see.
It's got to be rewarding. And that leads right into my next question. You know, like within the work that you do, what do you want to portray to people? What do you want to say to people about their health, about their situation? And it sounds like that's the message.
I mean, so much, it's all education, and it's all, at least the way I do it. Some people say, like, just go work on the emotional stuff and don't even think about it. I think that talking about what pain is so important because you understand not just pain, but even the other stuff. It's like, well, why do you get fatigue? Why do you have bowel issues? Why do you feel
symptoms?
All these other various symptoms that are so interconnected that people really don't think in this way about. It's really trying to help people see that, pain is almost always a mix of maybe a little bit of structural issues, which we all have, even if you don't have pain, combined with sort of a belief system that, oh, my knee is broken because it doesn't work perfectly. Therefore, and one of the keys here is pain is a protector as opposed to a detector.
Right.
Your brain creates pain. It's not in the knee. It's not in the back. It's in the brain. It's an experience. And that's when you actually look at the pain research and then actual governing bodies that are like the Pain Society and stuff, they call it a experience. It is not the same thing as like bleeding. It's not the same thing as other types of physical ailments. It is entirely an experience, which means you actually have way more tools to use.
Doesn't the pain...
You're open to it.
Yeah. And doesn't the pain a lot of times use a physical injury, the old football injury of 20 years ago, to kind of throw you off?
So you're remembering my story, aren't
you? Yeah. Well, your story and something in the Sarno book about some guy, a football player, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is, so think of an old injury as a vulnerability.
Right.
So the thing about it and what is perpetuated in our society is that when you have an injury, that piece of you is broken forever.
Yep.
And it will never be the same.
Right.
Therefore, it needs to be protected. And the best way to protect it is subconsciously via pain mechanisms to prevent you from doing anything major to it. The problem there is that when someone has such an injury and they continue to stay in this sort of loop of vulnerability, comes into the emotional aspect too, but this vulnerability of this place in the body, then you start babying it. You don't do the musculoskeletal work that you should be doing to grow and to maintain your strength. Our society is not the best at physical activity either. That's a big issue. So this is why you can't say, I can't say it's all emotional. That's one thing I would disagree with you about, because there's emotional, there's cognitive, and there is structural, but the structure is more about building the confidence in the body to do things.
Right.
Which means your brain knows if you're strong in your legs.
Right.
If you're strong in your legs, your brain is like, well, we're good here. We don't need to worry about it. If you're weak, your brain knows it. And it's like, well, if we do one little thing bad, we got to shut this down. I mean,
oh, no,
makes sense.
yeah.
So,
I absolutely agree with that. In fact, everything Sarno said, and almost every book I read on this condition says, get back to work. Mm-hmm. I mean, once you get checked out, you're not dying. You get back to rigorous work, go full blown. Sarno said, somebody asked him about, what about how heavy is something? So if you can pick it up, it's not too heavy. Pick up the weight, do the running, get back to whatever you were doing to build that confidence that you were saying.
Yeah, this is the other thing too that I run into with people is sort of the weekend warrior type thing. It's like, okay, like I haven't done anything for 20 years. I'm just going to go and play a game of basketball. So
make up for it,
because I did before.
Yeah.
And then, so that's the problem is you have a disconnect between your weak body because you haven't been doing anything, trying to do something overboard. Like Sarno's right. You need to go do stuff, but you need to not push yourself too far because then you flare up and then you're back even further. And when people get into these like activity flare cycles, then they think that they can't do anything.
Right.
And it's really debilitating because you kind of get stuck in this loop. It's like I try to do anything and I get hurt. Like I can't do anything. I have to sit in my recliner all day. And it's like, you need to get you up bit by bit by bit by bit. Yeah. And then some people come into my office and they're like, okay, I got this. I'm going to do stuff and all these things. It's like, hold on. slowly, because then someone getting a flare up, it's very difficult without mindset really into this to kind of get back into the same thing. So it's so easy to basically say, well, my knee's done. Flared it up, I can't do this. And just kind of gone.
Well, I've heard of cases, but I think it's after they've built up more confidence, though, just a flare up. Like, well, in Steve Osanish's book, The Great Pain Deception, for example, talked about he just got so mad, he just ran a mile full speed and it was gone. Just telling it, I'm done, I've had it, and just standing up to the pain, So
that's this is. Pain is complicated, and this is the whole piece here because you have to learn yourself a little bit.
Yeah, learn yourself, exactly.
So much about understanding, like, what kind of pain is this that I'm feeling? Because pain is a restrictor. It's a belief system in many ways.
Yeah.
So, if you push through it with belief that you're capable, you're probably not going to have issues. If you push through it with the belief that you're kind of vulnerable and not going to do well, you're not going to do well.
Yeah, I totally agree. There can't be even a shadow of doubt. You have to work up to it until there's not a shadow of doubt. Yeah.
Which is why I usually try to get people to do very gradual lifting physical activity because you're building strength slowly.
Yes.
That's important for the confidence in your body to do that.
Right. Well, speaking of doubt, that's my next question. So has there been a time in your career that you've kind of doubted what's like, man, am I doing the right thing? This is crazy. Nobody's doing what I'm all the time.
I told you that this is not a very good business model. When you basically see one person who's like, okay, well, either you hate what I just said because you're stuck in this physical, or you're on your way. And maybe come back in a year or so and we'll kind of fine tune everything.
Well, that's why I wanted to have you on this show, because in my culture anyway, you'll be a doctor, you'll be a lawyer. Like these are the epic things you have to be. They make money, they do this, they do that, but not necessarily. Sarno wasn't a billionaire. You're not.
Yeah, it's sort of, as far as doubt, lots of different things. One, burnout during medical school and residency, doing things that aren't really helping people. Just kind of maintaining their status quo.
Yeah, quote, right.
Even into chronic disease and nutrition, other stuff I'm really interested in. How much that's an issue, and everyone wants to just throw these like medications at people that hurt them more than not.
Yeah.
So throughout that time period, it's like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. Like, it's not doing anything. Do I really want to be in this? And pushing through, getting to this point, which I have this practice. I'm seeing people, helping people because I hear back from many of them that they're doing fantastic, but it doesn't, like, if you look at the business models of other practices, like your injections, like, oh, you have to come every 3 months and get this injection. I'll do more and more and more and more.
Right.
You're getting this repeat stuff. So exactly. It's,
oh man.
Welcome to our medical system. So,
well, so that's my next question. What would you say to a young person that wants to get in the medical field? He wants to do what you're doing. He wants to get into this alternative mind-body awareness anyway, and go down that path. What would you say to somebody starting out?
Yeah, careful with the alternative thing, because then people start thinking you're woo-woo when really this is what the medical science says. Right. Actually right there. It's just people aren't listening, and our systems are too big and slow moving to really make a change in that regard. For someone going into this, I really think for yourself and try to really understand what you are looking for and you're doing, because this is sort of the thing. Like, it's obviously easier to do the status quo. It's easier to just go along with, like, well, I'll just get this job and do this thing, and I'll just do these injections or these surgeries or these procedures or see these people for 5 minutes and kick them out. Like, that's easier. Yeah. And I would be lying if I said that I don't think about doing that, because it's like easier. It's not this kind of thing where you have to think a lot differently in terms of like the entire aspect of medicine and treatment and stuff. It's so, like, really the way I got through it was just reading a lot, getting interested in things that are different, really trying to understand all kinds of different things. It's hard because what you're taught in medical school is what you're needing to pass the test to get a medical license, and then not really much more than that. So
and it seems like the benefit to that, I was thinking for young people, at least the benefit to that, having that doctor degree in front of your name, is that, you know, you have that legitimacy in your title that would draw people to you. Yeah. You know. I
mean, that's the nice part of it. It's not, I don't have to like other degree or no degree.
They don't look you up under woo-woo
there is benefits to it. And I guess I should be thankful too, by being able to do other side work as well, to be able to actually do something more like this, which is the stuff I'm really interested in. And that there are ways of doing this when you're a solo doc. You have no overhead, so you can kind of do the work you want to. When you look at big practice medicine, you have to see 30 patients a day.
Quotas,
you can make your salary. And I can see 3 and make a huge profit. So and get to see people for an hour, really get to understand their stories. I think that's so important. It should be more of a thing for just other conditions as well, because there's so many pieces to health that are not these easy to fix little things. It's an entire picture. Pain is an entire picture, and all the other stuff too. Like when you look at chronic disease, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, all these things, you start seeing kind of a mind-body connection to all of it. And that's where it gets really interesting.
Well, I think we talked about Anita Mangiori's book, Dying to Be Me, where this woman had, I think they gave her less than a month to live. She was down to 80 pounds. She's on her way out with real, stage 5 cancer, whatever it was. Went into a coma. I think it was about 24 hours or 48 hours. And when she came out, she went into total remission. And she talked about in this coma, she just had a vision or some awareness that her whole life had been about pleasing people. She was East Indian, so her marriage was arranged, her education was arranged, everything. And there was that resentment. She loved her father, she loved her parents, but at the same time, she resented them because they had arranged everything. She didn't really have a life. It looked like she had a life, high achiever, which is totally classic, right? High achiever, perfectionist, and people pleaser.
Yep.
Please your parents, please everybody around you. So yeah, she's amazing. She's got about 80 YouTubes up on YouTube. And it's a fascinating story because that's about as sick as you can get. And it had that emotional component at the bottom of the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, it is somewhat this idea of how do you take care of your body, which is your mind and body. And
exactly. Well, I came to see you, and you didn't do anything to me very physically. We didn't go over a chart. We didn't do a lot of tests. I mean, you test my reflexes, and I always come in and make sure I'm not dying. That's kind of like, okay. So, and I've realized over the years of doing this, when it crops up, if I'm not dying, I do the thing, I call it the timeline. And sure enough, every time, when I just ask myself, what's going on?
Yeah,
what's going on? Yeah, man, it's just like, oh, yeah, I see it. Mm-hmm. Just like when I came to see you, there was just a litany of stuff. It was perfect. The timing was perfect.
When you start to see this way, like you see it in everyone.
Yeah, in everyone.
But no one really gets it until you really point it out to them. And even you were primed for this. Like I usually have to fight a little bit more with people to kind of put two and two together. You were an easy one because you had already read all this.
I know. They're either ready or they're not. I've turned a few friends onto it that had immediate results. Mm-hmm. One of my friends, he got it. He goes, God, I had this migraine. Oh, I realized every time I went, he was an engineer. Every time I went in to have a meeting with my boss, I come out with a headache. Mm-hmm. Every single time. Yep. Now I get it. And the headache stopped. Something that simple. Other people will defend their illness to the grave. No, it's this, it's that. You should see my MRI.
Oh, mine's real.
Mine's real. I had a neighbor like that. On crutches, could barely walk. And everything that came out of her mouth was classic. All the worry, the fear, the anger, the blame,
Well, this is what you also can see is at least what I've seen in terms of, so I work with disabled people. I've seen some ridiculously, mutilated people with no pain, doing fine.
Okay. Yeah. We've talked about that, right?
Structure doesn't matter. Like your leg can be broken in half and at this of an angle and it heals.
Right.
It's okay. It's here that you're scared of it.
Right.
So but that is a huge one to work through for people. So it's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, boy, this is going so fast. Let me get a couple questions here. It's already at a half hour. It's amazing. But it's a fascinating talk with you. I love talking about this.
You can talk about this forever because
forever. And we both have amazing stories around it. And the people that have had results that I've met on YouTube and all of it have amazing stories. And every time I hear them, I'm just like, let's get this out to the world.
It's out there. It's just
just like you said, I can see somebody at the market, and just by the way they're standing, you go, I know that lower right slump.
Yep.
Trying to get the pain to stop and all that. What do you do to relax, man? Because after a week of hearing all this pain from people, what do you do to relax?
Try to get in nature as much as possible.
Yeah,
that's the easiest way, and that would probably be a recommendation for most people anyway.
Absolutely.
You can help with most things.
Well, here we go. So, I would say if you're having an issue, go see Dr. Chris. Is Dr. Chris okay in Portland? What's the best way for people to find you, Chris?
Probably just through my website. It's goodrichmd.com. There's a contact form at the bottom. It's not a super fancy website or anything. I kind of have a low profile, as you know.
Good. Yeah.
I'm still amazed you found me. I don't know how you did that, but in terms of
you don't even have a photo. You have one of those those photos. It's not a photo. What do they call it? A silhouette.
So I see people both here in Portland and kind of telemedicine as well. I'm kind of moving more into that realm because you can get to more people, and this stuff that we're doing is talking. It's learning. It's growing. It's not. I'm not injecting you with anything.
Yeah.
Which, makes it easier to do that stuff. So if anyone wants to get in contact with me, I'm happy to help them out in any way I can.
Okay. Well, there you go. I just highly recommend it. If you've got chronic pain that's going on, you don't understand, you've seen everybody in the world, it's definitely worth taking a look at it. And I just want to leave with that. I would say go get checked out, obviously, with a doctor. Make sure you don't have something deadly. But after that, in my experience anyway, that's where I start looking at that timeline. The very first thing is look at your mental and emotional state. What's going on in your life, and start to look at it that way. And again, why I like Chris and people that are practicing like Chris is someone to take the journey with, because it builds your confidence in this whole process. And again, it's why I appreciate you so much. You didn't well, I asked for pain pills. It was bad. I got some pain pills, but that was short-lived because I didn't do anything. Just I got the confidence reignited with Chris, with my reading again, and that pain was gone in just a few weeks. And then I get busy on the issues that were bothering me, and then a lot of things going on. But in my experience, taking it from that angle is the only thing that works.
Yeah, it's hard work, but it's important. And
it's hard work, but it is. And at the same time, this is why I'm doing this program. Siddhartha, this is a metaphor to Siddhartha. We all take that spiritual journey where we venture out. And what is it? It's self-discovery. It's discovering us.
Sure.
Dr. Andrew Wild, is a great body-mind guy at Tucson, got a bunch of books out. He said it's always a gift. It's always chronic pain is a gift.
Yep.
And man, when you can start looking... Yeah, we start looking at it that way instead of the enemy. And look at our society. What do? We fight cancer. We fight this. We fight that. Instead of inviting it in. It's amazing. So thank you for being with us today, Chris. And I say, well, I hope I see you again, but I hope I don't see you again. It's that kind of thing. But
that's how it works.
We meet for a beer. That's better. Let's do that.
Yeah,
we'll go for a beer. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, everyone. And I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining in, everyone. If you'd like to stay in touch and updated about future programs and events, please check out my website and leave your email address. If you'd like to support this program, my music, workshops, and other events, see the link below and check out the benefits you'll receive by becoming a patron. Meanwhile, I wish you maximum creativity, power, and love. See you next time.